It was imperative for me to get rid of my virginity.
Hopla.
I kind of knew this boy, Jay, who had a moped. So in my eyes, he was rather sophisticated.
There was a lot of things in Joe's character that really struck me, you know? Like it'll strike most people.
I wasn't sure I was getting all the digressions and all the metaphors.
I know it's a very specific character, but the themes are quite generalized, you know? And for me, it just hit me quite hard.
Her relationship with Jerome starts off sort of, he's just is a sort of utility at first. He's a way of getting what she wants.
If I asked you to take my virginity, would that be a problem?
No, I don't see a problem.
But then it escalates and he becomes this obsession and this sort of man that she wants to possess and touch and feel, and it's a solution. And he later becomes her boss. And they end up having a relationship together, which I think she hopes will work, but deep down knows that it's not, because she's so driven. Throughout the film, she evolves a lot. So the part that I took, where all the flashbacks were very different to the part that Charlotte had done. And we hadn't really talked about who Jo is or how she is, because, I mean, in my mind, you're never the same when you're 15 or when you're 30 and then 40. So it's difficult to play the same character all the time.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
I'd been looking for an adversarial role. You know, previously in my life, in my career, I'm always the everyman, or the guy who's like the normal guy stuck in this extraordinary situation that he's got to deal with. And Jerome was an opportunity to play sort of a, you know, slimy, evil fucking, you know, blasphemous mini juggernaut of a man kind of thing.
She does start off, I think, you know, wanting to be part of a group and wanting to be part of something that they all believe in collectively.
She's convinced at the beginning that she should get into that little flock. She follows her beliefs until she's stricken by something stronger. My name is Jo.
I'm Seligman.
What a fucking ridiculous name. A lot of the work for me was to understand what both characters were saying, even though Jo doesn't really understand what Seligman is going on about all the time.
That's a very clear parallel to fishing in a stream.
I made him a man who had very little experience of life through experience and only through reading, and who tried to use whatever limited imagination he had to understand reality and life. He is also a crucial instrument for the digressions in the film, because he takes off talking about fly fishing or how icons are made or stuff like that. So he's responsible for fucking up her story as well. But it's a form that you usually don't see, and that they probably wouldn't recommend at film school.
Every scene that I had read with Jerome were powerful. All the scenes were really visceral, dealing with heavy.
In my mind, she was still discovering a lot of things, and she was learning what she believed in and what she thought was right and what she thought was wrong, and having her own sort of code of etiquette. Because that's my experience that I had with her.
The secret ingredient to sex is love. For me, love was just lust with jealousy added. Everything else was total nonsense. She's not very optimistic towards humankind. So in that sense, well, I don't agree with her, but I do love her very much.
Even though she loves him throughout the movie, it's not going to deter her from, you know, having relationships with other people and going out. And it's a difficult one because it's not so obvious, because she goes against it and she's against love.
She uses them, of course, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't have any feeling for them. She just knows what to use them for, what she needs.
And she became much more decisive and strong in who she was later on.
Hey, Eddie, it's me. Listen, I've given us a lot of thought and I've come to the conclusion that we're done. Bye.
She's very defendable.
Jerome has found an equal in Joe in a wild way.
Yeah, it's quite surprising.
Surprising. It's a sign from God.
He's as far away from love as she is, for different reasons. He's a very insecure man. He's a very vain man. And he's a very small man. Not physically, but small in terms of his ability to empathize with others.
You thought? You're not supposed to think. I don't pay you to think, do I? This is a do-over.
Do it.
Right. Pick it up, take it outside, and do it again.
You know, he's very small-minded, narrow, selfish.
I think she's very curious about her sexuality because she knows that it's something very young. She knows that it's something important to her, but she doesn't quite know how important it is and how to honor that importance. And she discovers it through B on the train and all these experiences. She becomes more assured. And so she develops this sort of hardcore opinions.
I've consciously used and hurt others for the sake of my own satisfaction.
She's going to go this far to get what she wants.
It's very hard to learn about life from books because it's so complex, so full of contradictions, and it's very hard to reduce to intelligent sentences. Life. That's why we have art. And that's why we have films like Lars. And Lars's films are like all films. They're not best when they're pinpointing something or telling you something very concrete. They're at their best when they're ambiguous and open and strange.
The way into the character is, you know, you ask yourself, what about you is pugnacious? What about you is vain? You just turn it all up. You just amplify all of it. So I became quite physical. It became like American Psycho. You know, it became that without the killing. In my head, he was, you know, a lot of tip to Christian Bale in that movie, because a lot of Jerome in my mind was that same kind of neurosis and self-centeredness as a Wall Street broker or something like that, you know? And he had this murky crime backstory history that we never really got into, which opened up a whole Pandora's box for me and my, you know, personal thoughts on the character. This is a dude who was living under the shadow of many men, bureaucrats, and was pushed into a bureaucratic position without any skills that way. Had no concept of love early on. You know, the guy has no concept of love. His idea of love is Joe's idea of love, this lust plus jealousy shit, you know, which is just a shadow of actual love.
I still have moments where I don't really know who she is because it's sort of a never-ending discovery. I mean, I'd be on set and it would come, like, you'd be in a scene and it would hit me and I'm like, oh, this is how she feels. This is who she is.
And I don't think he ever really learns it, nor does she. They just, in the end, I mean, when you see the movie, it's not all wrapped up in a bow, you know? They never really find it.
There's a lot of ambiguity that I really like in those characters, and a lot of depth, and that you can't read anywhere else, I think.